Who's got it better than us?
Nobody!
Herbert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back, number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton caught. Touchdown, Chargers!
Grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Oh dear. We were feeling pretty good, weren't we, Bolt fam? We had won 3 on the trot against AFC West rivals, but a young firebrand at MetLife Stadium by the name of Jaxson Dart came to play along with his buddy Cam Scatterbo, and the Giants emerge victorious. Yes, welcome to the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. No, it is not a solo pod. Listeners who are not used to hearing my voice, Andy is still in Europe, but I am, of course, joined by Jack, the man who knows it all himself. Jack, we had listeners starting to leave comments about you and Andy being a little too pessimistic about the Bolts, but I've learnt long ago that the teach is always right. And it must have made the sting of the loss slightly better.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I was infuriated by what I saw against the Giants, unfortunately. But fortunately for my lovely partner and my lovely daughter, they were not at home. I'm on school holidays at the moment, which meant that I was able to send some very comical videos that will never see the light of day to our private message chat with the Powder Keg boys. There was a lot of screaming and yelling. But yeah, it sort of feels like Justin Herbert came and sort of walked up the beanstalk and the Giants just flicked him off and he fell and broke his neck, which was really unfortunate. So, listen, I'm sure we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but it was a bit of a come to earth game, I think. And perhaps kind of maybe what we needed if we're looking at silver lining, but let's not get into that too much. Where do you want to start?
Well, at the outset, listeners, I will quickly say we do the like and subscribe, but leave us a written review if you can on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We see you out there, whether it's in Denmark or Wyoming, the hundreds of audio listeners. The best way you get our podcast out to the masses is you leave a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and a written review. And Jack, I'm told in the world of spam and scams, you need some time sensitivity. So leave the review quick, do it now. And thanks so much for listening. We're going to now start off with maybe, Jack, our first important takeaway from this game. Where would you like to take us first?
Yeah, let's go to something that I didn't think... It's a bit obscure to start off with because I think a lot of other people that are listening have probably listened to another couple of shows and talk about the O-line and we talk about the Jaxson Dart performance and things like that. So let's start a little bit off center and then we'll get to that kind of stuff. But the time of possession battle, and that is something that I noted last week in my teachable moment, that those are those little intangible stats that we're kind of seeing, we're used to now seeing Harbaugh win. But obviously the Giants destroyed us in that stat. They had a 35 minutes to 25, so an extra whole more 10 minutes of possession. And they dominated that clock with 42 rushing attempts. That's 32 and then 10 from Dart as well between he and Scatterbo, just compared to 13 for us. So that is a very, very telling stat. You wouldn't think the game was as close as 18 to 21 with that vastly different kind of number in both time and running attempts. But my Lord, it was almost a perfect storm for Harbaugh and Roman and Herbert. I don't think you're going to win games when there's that much of a disparity in those two key stats.
Yeah, well, run that rock and control that clock, I think, was my headline from last week's show. And it didn't seem like Greg Roman was interested in doing it at all. So why don't we really start there? Do you view that as a I don't know, he got caught up in the moment and ended up getting away from the running game? Or, was it just poor planning, poor execution? What do you think?
I think it's just a whole host of problems. I think also play action was one of the lowest of the year, or lowest in the last couple of games that I can remember. Under 20%. I think it was sitting at 18 or 16% or something along. And we know that, Justin Herbert was or has been turned into the best play action quarterback in the NFL, and that's what Roman's done over the last sort of 20 months or so. But when the protection is completely failing in front of you, and you're going to do a handoff to the running back, and you keep it, and you turn around, and Dexter Lawrence is literally, you can smell his breath and the spit is coming out of his face mask onto you, and you're running for your life. I can kind of see why perhaps Justin Herbert might have checked out of a few runs, might have seen something, might have wanted to get the ball out of his hand a little quicker. But it just seemed that there was no answers for that pass rush. But when we did run the ball, we ran it really well. I think it's the first time that I've ever seen a team pass the ball to set up the run. It's normally the other way around. So, Alex, what do you think? Why did we only run the ball 13 times?
Yeah, well, initially I was being maybe a bit beneficial to old Greg and assuming that, look, you already don't have Slater and Becton, two of your probably best run blockers, and then Joe Alt goes out of the game, and everyone focuses on how that impacts your pass protection. It also affects your run blocking, and I did think after going through the film today, the first couple of carries weren't especially promising. The very first run was a 1 yard loss. Alt whiffs on Brian Burns. The second time they run it, Hampton goes for 6 yards, but it's called back through a holding penalty. And then the next, a couple of times later, there was another 6 yard run wiped out due to a holding penalty. So I feel like maybe Roman got a little spooked early by that factor, but I don't think ultimately it excuses him, because
I was just going to say, I mean, you touched on another thing. It's just the penalties. I mean, what did we have? 14, I think. 6 on offense, 6 on defense, 2 on special teams. That's the most since 2000. So that's 25 years from what I can remember, from what I've got in front of me, I should say. Not that I remembered 2000. I was only 11 at the time. But yeah, that seemed to just kind of, with Alt going out and these constant callbacks, there's this ill discipline that crept in. And so, when I look at all this together, I just go, this is not a Harbaugh team. This is not a Harbaugh game. We've hardly seen a game like this where we've had all of these things going against us. So do you reckon this is kind of like once in a blue moon? It's just a get right game? Or do you think there's actually something a little bit more sinister going on here? Obviously, we'll talk about the offensive line in a second, but that aside, is there anything else you're sort of going, ooh, I don't know about that?
Yeah, well, a few things, to unpack. I mean, I do think West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast suffer a mild disadvantage for those earlier start games. I haven't looked it up, but I feel like I've read that there is a correlation between West Coast teams going over there and starting slow or performing worse than their usual record would suggest. The first snap of the game, Trey Pipkin's false start, and it's first and 15. And that impacts the play calling as well, don't forget. There were quite a few penalties on first and 10. All of a sudden, when you're first and 20, you understand how you can have, okay, pass, and now it's 3rd and 7, pass. All of a sudden, why aren't you guys running the ball? So I thought that also influenced the play calling choices. But I mean, you said it. It's the Chargers, the most penalties by the Chargers since 2000. I think most of us would say Jim Harbaugh is the most detail-oriented, disciplined type of coach of the coaches we've had, maybe except for Shoddy, since that period of time. It's also the second most penalties a Jim Harbaugh-led football teams ever had in a game in the NFL. The 49ers had 15 once, and as you said, the Chargers had 14. Reverse script last week, the Chargers had 3 and the Broncos had 10.
Huge.
So something about that it just makes it even harder to win the game if you're going to start slowly, be undisciplined, and then have those couple of turnovers. That's a recipe for disaster. And it was just the perfect mixture for a Jaxson Dart sneaky, pretty good performance on debut, or you don't reckon?
Oh, well, listen, because Spags is all over X at the moment, talking about PFF grades and things, but there are sometimes the intangible things that happen, and it seems to be that this tandem in the backfield of Jaxson Hart, might have had a little bit too much pork belly for dinner. Dart and Scatterbo just changed not only the way the defense was playing, but changed the whole stadium. You heard when Dart came into the game, the whole stadium came alive. I mean, like, let's be honest here. You look at his stat line and go 13 for 20, 111, 1 TD, passing and rushing, and 54 rushing yards. You go, well, that's a fairly mundane game. But it was just the way he did it. There were a couple of third downs when he was just able to get the chains moving. There were a couple of throws on third down that he was able to get. And we're sitting there going, what is happening, Minter? This is meant to be kind of like a rookie quarterback. You make him look like, prime time Patrick Mahomes in those snaps. He did have a couple of pretty poor ones as well. But it's just this amalgam of all sorts of weird things, bubble, boil and trouble, to quote Macbeth, that it just turned into a really, really bad day for all, I think.
Yeah.
And Cam Scatterbo, hats off to you. Like, he eats crayons, but my lord, he's a thumper. Gosh, got it done.
Yeah, I don't know about his longevity, but he was effective more in the first half than the second. Look, I think it would be underselling Jaxson Dart to focus just on the pedestrian box score stats, which is something, I've done from time to time, but he really played with a maturity that was beyond his years, I thought. Because even on that first drive, Minter did try change up a couple of looks post-snap, and he was just calmly going through it. There was a blitz where they sent 6. The line picked it up, and he's managed to escape and scramble. There was another good coverage where he decided not to throw it, tucked it, and ran. And I thought that decision-making was different to someone like Bo Nix in his first year, where I felt pretty good that Bo Nix here is going to make a mistake on third and long. You said it. They converted 7 of 15 on third down. And also don't forget, he had 2 really good plays taken back due to Giants holding penalties. This could have looked a lot worse. He had a 40-yard rush that got called back due to a hold. And I was pretty impressed. He scored twice. He just did not make an error. And, it's only 21 points, but that was enough on the day.
And also add to that, your number one guy goes down with a brutal knee injury as well. And I'm sitting there going, hey, you hate to see injuries, but this is huge for the game. You think that? I thought that was a turning point, but no. What does Jaxson Dart do? He and he was playing with a twinged hammy as well.
Right.
It was all this. It was just frustrating to see. But taking the bias hat off and taking the bolts hat off, he played pretty well. And I think, Brian Daboll's possibly got himself, an interesting prospect to play with. Let's just see what teams now do with a week of tape and looking at those designed runs. And I mean, my Lord, there were times when the seas just seemed to have parted in front of Jaxson Dart and he just runs. There was no QB spy. Both of our linebackers were dropping down like 8 or sort of 7 into coverage or 8 into coverage. And he just goes, whoop, thank you very much. So, whether that was ill-disciplined, whether it was really good blocking from the Giants' offensive line, which I doubt, it just sort of, it was just one of those frustrating, almost like, dare I say, and I'm not calling Dart Mahomes, but those times when Mahomes just owned the pocket and you just go, just get him. We can't. So, well done to Dart.
Well, naturally, Jack, I think it's a fair time to mention. I thought that was one of the few schematic errors Jesse Minter has made since he's taken over as defensive coordinator of the Bolts, because on the first drive of the game, Jaxson Dart had 28 rushing yards on that opening drive, including the 15-yard touchdown where Scatterbo's the lead blocker on Henley. Off he goes. It was clear that he's a guy who is prepared to use his legs if he looks up and doesn't like what he sees. To start the second half, the first drive of the third quarter, I was shocked to see there was no spy on the first third down. Dart converts it with his legs for 10 yards. And then lucky 2 yards later, there was that 40-yard scramble taken back by a hold. But again, there was no spy in the middle of the field. So you're not making the adjustments as you see them. Neighbours is out of the game too, as you said, Jack. So there are only so many ways that this team can move the ball. That was one of them, and we did not plug that hole.
Speaking of plugging holes, something that we did not do at all. Let's talk about the offensive line, because we're in deep Stung, as they say in Starlight Luft 3. We are in deep Stung. Joe Alt goes out, high ankle sprain. Best case scenario there. He's back within 4 weeks. With, tackles and high ankle sprains, that's mobility. You do put a lot of pressure on those feet. And Joe Alt's really good with his feet. He anchors really well and pushes and gets a lot of power, but he's also really quick with his kick step and things. So that's a little bit worrying. Deculus comes into the game, and not only does he look terrible, he gives away a penalty, a bad one as well. Jamari Solier had another average game. Bozeman was really struggling. Man, and it was the worst game for it to happen, right? What did Carter have? 9 pressures, 20% win rate. Lawrence had his incredible INT, 2 pressures. Brian Burns was everywhere. Thibodeau was everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, that is 2 approaches to building a defensive line and an offensive line. Arguably, first-round draft picks in Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater are not there, but that is first-round talent versus 5th and 6th round talent. And that's the NFL at the moment. You just can't find good backup offensive linemen anywhere. What do we do, Alistair? What do we do? Because if we roll that line out, I'm scared that Justin Herbert is going to snap his spine. Spinal. It's spinal.
Herbert now has numerous seasons with some kind of ailment, getting hit. And very concerningly, he's now been hit 33 times this season per True Media. That's the 3rd most in the NFL behind Flacco and Cam Ward. The Browns and the Titans. 3rd is Justin Herbert. In this game, Jack, Thibodeau, Burns, and Carter each had 3+ quarterback hits each. The only other Giants trio to do this in a single game, Kiwanuka, Michael Strahan, and Ozzy Umenyiora. You've got to go back to 2007 against the Eagles. So they've had, a once in an 18-year game. Now to answer your question, they're not going to do anything about it. There's nothing they can do about it. I mean, I doubt that they'll make a big signing in the next 2 or 3 days. They've already made a kind of practice squad caliber one earlier today. They will be hopeful that Mekhi Becton, who is still in the concussion protocol, will clear that and be able to play. At least that's something at right guard. Maybe do you then think about moving Solier to left tackle? Or Pipkins to left tackle and Solier to right tackle? I think they're really your options. I think Zion and Bozeman are kind of here to say, I think Bozeman at this point is the worst centre in the NFL. That's certainly how he's playing. The worst starting centre, at least from an on-field, tangible rather than intangible perspective. But the intangibles aren't going great either. We've got stunts and twists coming through the A-gap pretty damn often. But what are you going to do? Are you shaking it up, or are you backing them to go back in and, the leaders will stand up?
Well, the intangible stuff, and the reason perhaps why Bradley Bozeman was signed, was Justin Herbert was getting his leg locked and ACL twisted by that New Orleans player, and Bozeman comes in and, flies the flag, won himself an extra $6 million, whatever his contract is for the next 2 years. I think you have to do something, because if I'm Justin Herbert sitting there going, guys, I know we've had another week of practice, but how many walkthroughs do we do? How many live reps am I taking with this offensive line? 10, 20, if that? How am I going to find rhythm? The connection between a center and a quarterback is important, but at this point in time, I'd rather just people who can get the ball to Justin Herbert and at least protect. And there are a couple of guys in that line that are just not doing it in their position. So does Andre James come in? As you said, do you think about moving Becton to a tackle spot as well, just to give Roman and Herbert some time on that play action stuff? Because at the moment, it's not as bad as CJ Stroud taking a sack in 0.2 of a second, but it's very goddamn close, right? It's very, very goddamn close. And I don't know what's going on with our short passing game either, Alistair. There's a little segue. Ladd McConkey seemed to have gotten absolutely locked up. What did I see? Drew Phillips in the slot had one of the better performances you'll see. 3 pass breakups, 1 INT, allowed 2 catches for 10 yards, and earned himself a 92 PFF grade. And he was just, you watched the All-22. I'm actually super interested to see what you saw from McConkey. Is he off? Is there something wrong? Is he injured? Because
look, I don't really think so. I thought like there were times where they had some bracket coverage going on, and they were using him in a bunch to try and get the coverage to move off and then spring open Keenan or QJ, who got targeted 13 times or something in this game. But that doesn't absolve Lad McConkey. Now, part of me, we discussed Drew Phillips on the last show. I said he was my favorite sleeper cornerback 2 years ago in the draft. He had a good year last year. Last week, he didn't have a good week when they played against the Chiefs. I said he was feisty. I said he was physical. I said there might be some DPIs. I said Tyquan Thornton caught a couple of long balls on him. Well, he clearly took last week's performance personally. On McConkey, he was targeted 4 times for 0 catches. He had 2 pass breakups. He had an interception. And like he clamped McConkey. And then there might have been an element of getting in the head too, because McConkey also had the 2 drops. So it wasn't only the tight coverage, it was just some fumbly things that you have not seen before from Lad McConkey. I want to ask you a question about this, Jack, because I think not using play action so much this week was partially by design. The average depth of target was much shorter at 6.5. Yeah. They knew they had good pass rushes. We even saw 3 screen attempts. We saw some, 3-step drops. And look, trying to help Herbert as much as we could. What I thought we do have, though, is, a heavy reliance at the moment on 11 personnel and having QJ, Ladd, and Keenan on the field all at the exact same time. They all played over 50 snaps. Trey Harris had just the 12 snaps. What do you think? Is that a potential solution? Mixing up KLS, Trey Harris, instead of this kind of those 3, and Gadsden seems to be the preference right now.
Well, when Scott Matlock is getting the same amount of targets as Trey Harris, I think I'm beginning to question what's going on and why Trey Harris and KLS, if Herbert hit that throw, would have been one of the most incredible throws of the year. He was
KLS
off
stopped
by
on the route.
He did too, running. Yeah. He sort of
I couldn't tell if there was the sun
bit.
in his eyes. It was a bit sunny at MetLife. Maybe I'm being too kind, but
but again, I mean, Gadsden is looking good in the pass game, but it seems like Conklin and Disley, when they're on the field, when Matlock's on the field and pulling and running across to try and find a guy to block in a running formation, it's just not happening. It's just not happening. So I can kind of see where Greg Roman is possibly getting super frustrated and going, I'm running heavy personnel, but I can't get anything. I can't do anything. Not only am I losing guys left, right, and center. I don't have my best run blocker in Becton. I don't have Alt. I don't have Slater. Like, what can my guys do? And I guess when there's a rotating offensive line, what can guys do? And we've seen it with Justin Herbert is they can pass block. When it comes to run blocking, it's a little bit more technical and requires cohesion. So I don't know. I mean, Tucker Fisk came in and had a fairly average game. Like, Tucker Fisk is getting balls, like bouncing off his hands. He's like, what's going on here?
In critical moments in the last quarter. I mean,
I'm going, what are we doing?
Yeah, very. Look, this is going to be an important thing and also a challenging thing, because I'd like to spend a bit of time, if we can, talking about the first round pick, the running back Omarion Hampton.
Let's do it.
Long-time listeners will know that I was not super happy about that pick, or at least thought there was a missed opportunity. In this game, you saw a 4th-round running back on one side, a 1st-round running back on the other. Neither team with a strong offensive line. But I thought, Jack, this was Omarion Hampton's breakout game. I mean, initially when I watched it, I thought, what have I learned from Hampton here? I've learned that he's had an amazing beast mode run in short yardage. I already know he can do that. And I've learned that if you block up a run perfectly and you get him in space, he's such a good athlete, he can take that thing home. But I thought almost every carry he had in this game was sensational. I was so impressed watching this performance, not just running the rock, also receiving. Like, he just naturally caught this hitch and turned upfield like he was Christian McCaffrey. And I'm seeing a guy who's not only progressing every single week from a statistical perspective, what I'm seeing is a guy who is just reading and reacting that much quicker. There's not hesitation. He's planting that foot and going. I was super excited by what I saw.
The one thing that I haven't seen in a Chargers running back, gosh, and listen, I'm not calling him LT, but what Austin Eckler was great at was taking hits and traffic, pinballing around and sort of getting extra yards. He was very elite with his footwork, great on little wheel routes, great on little dump offs and getting those extra yards. It's been a very long time since we've had a guy that can do that, but also seem to be an absolute powerhouse when it comes to getting hit. Austin Eckler, pinball, would get it. His body took a punishment. Hampton just seems to absorb hits. Linebackers, cornerbacks come at him and he just doesn't, it almost like it doesn't affect him. He absorbs it and keeps on pushing and you're sort of going, oh, he's going to stop here. No, 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yard, 4, 5 yards, and he falls forward. The one thing we haven't had in a running back for so long is a guy that really falls forward. Najee was that guy before he was, he had his Achilles, blown off of his bone, but the way that they can fall forward and get that extra 2-3 yards, it's just insane. And you're right, Alistair. I'll even put it to you that you're sort of seeing this guy. Not only is he improving week to week, but he's actually almost snap to snap. You can see him getting better. You can see him adjusting to the speed and the power of the NFL game. But that run, and my Lord, did he put on the freaking burners, man? Ooh. Like he just went whoop, and it was gone. Insane game. What I hope now is that we don't just give him 25, 30 carries a game thinking that he's going to be some sort of huge production beast, and that we're going to put all this pressure on him, because I worry about the longevity for him without a really good number two. We didn't even see Vidal, but 120, 130 yards, touchdown, very, very happy. And he's touched the ball more.
He caught all 5 of his targets thrown his way too. I mean, Tao said quite adroitly, styles win fights. There are different styles of running back. And I think Hampton's style, I've used the word inefficient. It might be unkind, but with Dobbins, that elusiveness, I feel like you have more like 4 yards every run, 5 yards every run. Hampton, because he is a bit bigger and maybe a bit more limited laterally, I do feel like you'll get those 1 yard, -1, 3, 19. Because sometimes he does just, dip his helmet and just run straight. But, there are lots of really good running backs who have done that. Tao listed Barry Sanders, but there are others. It doesn't always have to be 4 a pop. It can be, short yardage, home run, 50-something yards. The challenging thing, Jack, and this is where I do think Greg Roman deserves criticism. Game is on the line, right? We have just seen Amari and Hampton have I think it was a 54-yard touchdown. Yep. The next drive, we've managed to force the Giants to punt. Unfortunately, we're starting at our own 9-yard line. The score is 21-18. The play calling, incomplete pass. 8-yard quick pass to Keenan at the bottom of the screen. It's 3rd and 2. Incomplete pass on 3rd and 2. Deculus gets whooped by Andre Carter. Why don't you give one of those 3 carries in your own 10 yards to the guy who's literally just had a 50-yard touchdown? Feel the game. Greg Roman always talks about, I'm going to feel the game and being 8 moves ahead in chess. I think he was 3 moves behind in that particular respect.
He might have been playing checkers, not chess as well. I think Carter, from memory, was just all over Deculus. They generated 2 pressures and it essentially sealed the game for them. Yeah.
The stunts were back too, Jack.
There
were 3.
There
were 3.
They were back
Maybe it's Becton. Maybe you need Becton in the team in Alt and we won't see them. There were 3 with a vengeance.
Here's one for you as well. What's going on with special teams? Something is going on with Ficken, Fucken, Fiken. J.K. Scott has punted okay, but again, that 31-yarder came at a really bad time, like really bad time. And I just feel like the kick return coverage has been quite poor last week and this week. So whether it's just a whole new bunch of guys that are getting used to it, I don't know. But those hidden yardages, those small little things do make a difference. It's just something that's on my radar. And I don't know. Did you see anything in the All 22 about that, or you can jump off that and go somewhere else?
I saw the two longer runs we allowed, and saw someone miss a tackle or be slow in an angle. Marlo Wax, Delshon Phillips. They're different guys to the guys who were in there last year. I'm not a special teams ace where I know when it's punt right, this is how we structure it. All I know is I'm watching what you're watching. We are not performing in the coverage units like we were last year. And it's just a fact. And unfortunately, J.K. Scott, you had an awesome punt that, landed on the 1 yard line earlier in the game.
That was good. As I said, that was good.
It was awesome, but he saved his worst for last. It's the opposite of the song. He 31 yards in the third quarter. So that was a stinky Davis for sure.
Well, we haven't talked about many positive things, but how about Tooley's day? Let's talk about that. That was pretty impressive. That was kind of, what do we sack Dart 6 times? Tooley having 4 of them. Again, he is trying his best. I still think he is probably one of the better edge setters in the league, or at least on our team. I think he's very, very good at that. But there was pursuit there, which was fantastic this week, and he was kind of a shining light on. Otherwise, I thought was a fairly pedestrian day from the interior as well. We're used to seeing the interior get a lot of push up the middle and pass rush pressure. Dupree, I know that Murphy came in and had half a sack from memory.
Yeah,
but yeah, that the shining light being Tooley amongst, as I said, fairly pedestrian defensive line effort, I thought.
Yeah.
And again, Minter seems to be trying to manufacture pressure with different looks as well. Did you see anything in your analysis this afternoon?
Well, I thought it was interesting that Minter in his last press conference during the week had said, I keep saying to Tooley, just do what you're doing, keep doing it. And I'm a real believer that sacks come in bunches and you'll start to see reward from your effort. I actually thought the football gods did him a couple of favors in this game, because I thought his first sack was a coverage sack, and it was effort, but the ball should have come out, but the coverage was really good. The second sack, the Giants just decided they were going to forget he exists, and he came off completely unblocked. And the third one also was like one where he played the run first, waited for the guy to come across in motion, realized, oh, I'm unblocked, and then goes forward and unblocked again. Sacks Dart. So it's not like he's winning by racing off upfield, bending and turning the corner. He is being quite stout. And Khalil Mack does that a little bit too, right? First off, it's react, make sure you've set a hard edge, and then you can attack with your bull rush. And I thought he had a really good game, because he also made a couple of plays late that weren't necessarily sacks, but, tackle for loss of the running back. So good on you, Tooley. I also agree with you on the big boys up front, Jack. They were pretty stout against the run, but there wasn't a lot of push up the middle that I saw, at least. What about maybe the next 2 levels of the defense? Anything that stood out to you from either the linebackers or our cornerbacks and safety group?
Not particularly. I thought Derwin had another sort of come to earth game a little bit. Possibly wasn't as sort of a standout. I mean, he, still relatively solid, but Alohi Gilman had a pretty good PBU, which was insane actually toward the end of the game. But again, nothing really stood out to me in the secondary much, other than when Dart on those third downs, the guys were just super open. It looks like we were really soft in our zone coverage or something. It just seemed like we weren't on top of the balls, that are thrown where we normally are. And I felt like every single throw that Justin Herbert made, it was contested. It was, catching against the body or things like that. So it just felt a little bit, I can only go off feel. I haven't watched the All 22, but that's kind of where I kind of sit. Molden came back as well. I don't know how much of a good day he had either. It was so strange, because a lot of the yards and a lot of the killer plays came with the legs of Dart. So whose responsibility is it? That's probably going to affect PFF grades. That's why I'm not really quoting any of them here. But what did you see?
Well, I think there is also some room for, questioning the defensive strategic approach after Neighbours went out of the game. Now, they did blitz a little bit. They'd blitz 5, very rarely more than 5, but they were quite stubborn wanting to play 2 deep safeties a majority of the time, especially on passing downs. And I thought, I put myself in Minter's shoes. He might say, Al, I got 2 really short fields from turnovers. That incredible Dexter Lawrence play and also the interception to Drew Phillips. Those were both drives starting in our own 10. We kept one of those to a field goal. And at the end of the day, I believe in not allowing any explosives, and I'm going to just risk it. I'm going to play conservative because I'm going to hope that Dart, the first game rookie, makes a mistake at some stage. And you know what? If he doesn't, we're going to keep them to 21 points. And that's enough for us to win. The other part of me, though, says there was enough tape to show that he was slicing a little bit on those, like the linebackers were struggling in coverage. He'd hit Bellinger. He'd suddenly hit that soft spot between the corner and the safety in cover 4. Yep. And at a certain point, can you dare him to throw a deep completion in man coverage when he's got like Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton?
Yeah. You've been able to articulate kind of what I was feeling. Gosh.
Well, of those 2, who do you side with of those 2? Do you think Minter was right because they only scored 21 points? Or could there have been more done?
You said offline that Minter had watched every single snap of Jaxson Dart from his time at Ole Miss. So I'm going to believe that Minter had a game plan, and when something is working, define working. Okay, I'm not saying that working is winning here, but it's like, okay, this is what we came to do. This is how we're prepared. If I change now, I could be putting my guys in a tough spot. So, and let's be honest, 21 points to 18, we had a chance on offense to win the game. And so that's all perhaps that Minter was, or Harbaugh said to Minter, hey, just put us in a position to win the game. Put us in a position to win the game. Don't try and do anything too exotic, because if we can't keep the game close, it's over. So, and then even there's
after
chaos.
The tackle went down, even after Old went down, don't you think? But hey, we've had 3 out of 4 games without a turnover, if I'm not mistaken. I think we might have had 3 in the one game against the Raiders. I think we didn't have a turnover against the Chiefs or the Broncos. Now, neither have we against the Giants. We'll have to double check that. Yeah. But either way, I felt like this was a game where the offense needed some help. The offense actually needed a turnover pretty badly when we've got the 3-headed monster having a zillion sacks. Or a zillion hits anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go before we get into our sort of nahs or whatever we've got and my teachable moment. Let's zoom out. Let's go. How bad is this loss, Alistair? Is this, lunch pails, we need to go to the river, the house is burning, like everyone hands on deck, let's go? Or is it just trust in Harbaugh, given what we've spoken about already with some of these numbers, these strange time of possession, the hits, the injuries, a brand new quarterback, a running back who's is like an orc from Lord of the Rings. Is it just, well, hold your horses. It's going to be okay. There'll be some, equilibrium against the Commanders this week. Where are you?
The offensive line worries me as a season-long thing. But bigger picture, I'm not worried. And the reason is I think the leadership and effort is still there aplenty, despite the penalties. I'm talking Justin Herbert chasing down an interception and tackling 340-pound Dexter Lawrence. I'm talking Keenan Allen chasing 40 yards, Drew Phillips tackling him short of the end zone. I'm talking the last 3 defensive plays of the game. We have Derwin smack Scatterbo at the 1-yard line dead. Amazing. And then we have Tooley jump the line for a 2-yard loss. And then on 4th down, we have Alohi Gilman with one of the all-time pass breakups to just force that ball out of the hands of the receiver. If we go on to win that game, that's just like all of your leaders, all of your best players saying, nope, we're winning this game. It didn't happen, but that's why I'm not concerned bigger picture.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. On the day, it's always get your pitchforks out and let's try and stop the house from burning. But in the cold light of the next day, you look at it and go, on balance, it just wasn't a hardball game. And it's very rare that we see a not a hardball game. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I can't remember watching it going. Things just aren't right. I mean, the Texans, that's a whole other story. But generally, the last sort of year and a bit has been okay. We're okay. I think we could have easily won that game. So yeah, I'm not tear it down. I think we're going to be okay. It's going to be a challenge this week. And as you say, the offensive line, unfortunately, we find ourselves in the place maybe we were against the Texans just a little earlier than we were last year. Let's just hope Alt gets back soon and Becton is okay. But we've got to do some stuff there because I not only the line am I worried about, but I'm also scared about Justin Herbert getting an injury. And dare I say, why didn't Justin Herbert run a little bit more against the Giants? Maybe he's just a little bit under the weather. Don't know. Don't want to prognosticate too much there. Leave it at that.
Yep. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. Big picture concern or big picture things are going to be fine. Hey, Andy, you let us know. You might be enjoying a wine or two in the French Riviera. Take a moment, share your thoughts. All right. We're going to go now to our awards and then Jack's teachable moment. I'm going to start this week with our Yeah, Nah, and Nah, Yeah award. While we're on the topic, the Yeah, Nah award this week, I'm going to give it to the Bolt fam. Not in a hostile way, in a come on, we can be better guys way. We were all yeah for the first 3 weeks of the season and the 3 victories, but I've seen some pretty sharp hectoring in comments about Joe Ortiz, about the organisation, about how much people care, about not Justin Herbert. I think Herbert has rightly been left out of any criticism, but the offensive line is coming under fire. For maybe fair enough, some might say, but I would also say if you're the type of fan who is ecstatic about Jim Harbaugh leading this team, trust Jim Harbaugh that with 13 weeks to workshop a way to success around this offensive line and the problems that have manifested, they've got the cattle and the wherewithal to do it. So it's the Chargers fans who get the Yeah Nah award for this week. And I'm glad we didn't bring him up at all during our recap, but I'm giving the Nah Yeah, Jack, to Cam Hart.
Yeah, nice.
I thought things were looking pretty dire for him early in the season, not only his injuries, but his performance in the first couple of games. I really thought this was a strong performance. He had that open field tackle one-on-one of Scatterbo on a 2nd and 7 at the LAC 7 on that goal line stand. That was like you and him. Scatterbo, I thought Scatterbo was making him miss for sure. No, Cam Hart went low and took out his legs. He also had perfect deep coverage on that go route where Neighbours tore his ACL. And that was a very sad outcome, but Cam Hart played that rep really, really well. And I thought overall had a good game. So Cam Hart, the award is yours. Onto your teachable moment.
Nice. Yeah, sure. Yeah, Cam Hart. Good call. All right. We're going back to World War II for this one. And I racked my brain from Monday, or our Monday morning, to think about a good historical analogy for what we're seeing at the Chargers. Perhaps a little bit of this year, perhaps last year. But here we go. In the lead up to World War I, France poured its resources into the Maginot Line. A formidable wall of bunkers, cannons, and concrete stretched across its eastern border. It was a masterclass in preparing for yesterday's war. Slow, fortified, and positional. But the Germans didn't attack through that line, no. Instead, they launched a blitzkrieg, a new form of lightning war, fast and fluid, that incorporated tanks, infantry, and aircraft. A perfect symphony of destruction, sweeping through Belgium and flanking the French entirely. The word blitzkrieg itself comes from the German blitz, lightning, and krieg, war. And that's exactly how it felt on Sunday. Speed, surprise, and pressure. Funnily enough, it's also the root of the word blitz, and in the NFL defenses today, an aggressive storm unleashed upon the quarterback. That's what the Giants bought. When Joel went down early, the Chargers' protection crumbled like an unmanned bunker. The line wasn't just weakened, it was static, stuck in old assignments, and unable to respond to the shifting threats. Edge rushes came through untouched, play designs unraveled, and the offense stalled under pressure. It wasn't just brute strength that beat him, it was speed, misdirection, relentlessness. A true New York Giants blitzkrieg. If Herbert is the Eiffel Tower, then we better call for reinforcements because I'm worried he will not be standing much longer. Class dismissed.
Do you know I never put two and two together about blitz having its kind of origin in the German word? Of course. Very nice teachable moment, Jack. I think the question is who is going to be our saviour. We need the Americans to come into the war or something, and who's going to come in and fix our offensive line.
Yeah. What's going to be the Chargers D-Day? You know, what's it going to be? Who knows?
Well, it may be this week against the Washington Commanders. So why don't we move to our preview of Week 5? We'll start with some news in Chargers camp. We've referred to it already. Joe Alt seems to have been cleared of any serious, negative X-ray, but apparently per Diana Rossini of The Athletic, he is getting a second opinion on the severity of the ankle. Now that sounds potentially concerning, but that's all we know. We know that there is a second opinion being sought, and at this stage we don't know anything about the severity, so time will tell on that. Hopefully it's 4 weeks or less, but it could be he goes on IR. We shall see. Speaking of Germans, the Chargers tried out a few different offensive linemen during the week, including one bloke called Gottlieb. Ultimately they release Miles Purchase and Rashad Weaver from the practice squad, replace them with an offensive lineman, Michael Dunn, who's been a backup for a few years with the Browns, and a cornerback called Isas Waxter. That's a very, very, very good name. I don't think we'll be seeing either of those two on the field anytime soon.
That's like Madden creator player on your 10th season, and you just the AI is just pulling names out of its ass.
Daniel Pop, or the Chargers Twitter handle, might have just been having a bit of fun. Who knows? Onto the Commanders. So injury-wise, two big ones. Terry McLaurin, he's missed a game with a quad. He's actually looking unlikely. They went ahead and actually signed wide receiver Robbie Chosen, or Robbie Anderson, or Chosen Anderson, whatever his name is these days, but a veteran receiver to the room. Seems to indicate McLaurin might miss. The big one is Jaden Daniels, who has a tweaked knee. He's missed the last 2 games, and Mariota has started. It looks like he's more likely to play, Jack. So I think we should assume we're going to get the Commanders at their best. Very quickly, Commanders are 2-2. They won in week 1 against the Giants. They lost in week 2 to the Packers. They won in week 3 to the Raiders. And then they had a pretty, I would say, comfortable loss down in Atlanta to the Falcons in a game that was 34-27. Quite high scoring. Penix threw for over 300 yards. Bijan Robinson, I thought, was the story of this game. He had 180 combined, like all-purpose yards, including 2 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts and Drake London got into the mix. The Commanders weren't without their, players performing on offense, but look, they fall to the Falcons. They're now 0-2 away from home. They've got the oldest roster in the NFL, Jack. Why don't you start us with a key to victory or a pass the parcel in this game?
Well, I'm going to go, before we look at the run game, let's just have a look at trying to rebuild Herbert's confidence from the Giants. Let's see if we can pick on this secondary, because in 3 of the 4 games, Washington's secondary has allowed an average of 285 yards. Their weekly coverage grades from PFF are 58, 29, 51, 39. Lattimore got beaten soundly by Drake London for 8 catches, 110 and a touchdown. Amos is sort of so-so. Sainra still is a bit of a reunite with Harbaugh, obviously, but he does get cooked if you seem to give him a bit of body English. So my key to victory, and it's a little bit of a strange one because obviously the first one might be running the rock, but let's get Justin Herbert's confidence up. Let's pick on this secondary because it's one of the worst in the league. So that would be my first key to victory.
Yeah. They're a young, I've just said they're an old team, but they're a young secondary. A lot of these guys are first, second, third year players. You can throw Quan Martin in there. They had a couple of miscommunications between Trey Amos and Jeremy Reeves, who's a backup. So I would like to see Roman doing a bit more motion, short motion, just before the ball is snapped. You motion from a 2x2 into a 3x1 stack and snap the ball as that 3x1 is formulating. Yep. Put some pressure on their communication, just like the Falcons did. I think that would work. I'd also like to test their linebackers out a little bit with Hampton or Gadsden, because Bobby Wagner got cooked in coverage by Bijan.
He did.
They're still very good run defenders, him and Frankie Louvu, but I think you can, use their aggression and maybe their elder statesman status against them out in space and on wheel route. So that's my second, at least if we're attacking them through the air.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the flip side of attacking their secondary, I think you recommit to the run. I think they're fourth per PFF in run defense grade, so they're relative very strong there. But it's, as you said, it's that soft underbelly of the linebackers. I would love to see Hampton a little bit pushed wide outside of the tackles a little bit. Yeah, and sort of pushing and really, really testing and stretching that that middle of the defense and testing those young CBs as well. What else have I got? You've talked about motion and bunch sets. That's exactly what I sort of said. I think that's what we need to do in the passing game. And, let's try and replicate the red zone efficiency of the Falcons. The Falcons went 4 of 6 in the red zone, and I think we left points in the red zone against the Giants. So, Roman, you're on notice. Let's get points. I think we're going to have to get some points as well on offense. Al, do you want to take away with the defense?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, like the Giants game, commit resources to stopping what is a very diverse and impressive running game. That's where this game starts for me. Cliff Kingsbury, whether it's Mariota or Jaden Daniels, they are quite a collegey style of offense. They've got a variety of receivers. They've got Chris Rodriguez Jr., who's your biggest 6'2", 224 back. He had one lovely long run against the Falcons. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt is maybe a little more elusive and athletic. He's quite fast, and Jeremy McNichols is similar to him. You've got Debo, who can do end-arounds and sweeps, and you've got whoever's the quarterback. Both of them are relatively mobile. These guys will do anything from the pistol, RPOs, wildcat. They'll have the quarterback in the gun with split backs. They'll then spread you out wide and run from the shotgun. So they will throw everything at you. We need that communication for pushes. We need Derwin and Henley and Dye communicating, because they have had over 200 rush yards in 2 of their 4 games and over 150 rush yards last week.
Yeah, okay.
They're a good group. They're a really good group.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be a Henley game and a Derwin James game, I feel, and a Tahib Steele on the edge. That's where it's going to be. We just can't
Isn't
have
he
those.
Tackling well?
Yeah, Tahib Steele, mate, freak.
Yeah.
But we just can't have the line open up for Jaden Daniels or Mariota if he's playing, and just to get those easy 8-10 yard runs. There needs to be some discipline here. I trust Minter to be ready for this one. We're at home. I think we'll be a little more ready for a running game. The only other thing I had, mate, was that's it. Actually, that's all I've got. Maybe
that speaks to this team being not too bad. I mean, their offensive line is pretty good. They've got one of the best pass protecting left tackles in the league in Laramie Tunsil. They've got a rookie on the other side, Connolly, who's a bit hit or miss at right tackle, and they've got a backup left guard in there. So, but I mean, I think to get pressure on these guys, you're going to have to do something a little bit extra, because they're not allowing that much pressure, and they've also got a mobile quarterback. So, look, I trust Minter to keep this relatively low scoring, because I actually think we will match up in the secondary fairly well against, Luke McCaffrey, Christian's brother, Chris Moore, who's a bit of a veteran, deep ball specialist. Zach Ertz is pretty old at this stage of his career. The one receiver we need to work out what to do with is Debo, who I thought had really lost something at the 49ers. He's caught 22 of his 26 targets. And, he had a good game last week. I think he caught all of his targets, and he's just making those explosive plays again. He had a 25-yard touchdown catch down the sideline. Who would be your matchup? Like, if you're having to cover Debo one-on-one, is it Derwin?
Gosh. I wonder if Derwin's... I don't know if Derwin's fast. Is Derwin quick enough to go with Debo? You think that Debo's too big to go with still. Maybe it's... I don't know. It's so hard because he lines up in the slot. He's motioned on a lot of them. The way he was used in San Fran, he's always moving. I don't know. Who would you put on him? Who's the best matchup?
Yeah, well, it might be dependent on where he's aligned. So maybe you're trusting Cam Hart when he's lined up out wide, and you are going with Derwin when he is in the slot, and then I don't know, some kind of a shade of Molden on your bracket coverage. But it's something they're going to have to figure out. Onto our game headlines, Jack. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to try and be positive again. I'm going to say, keeping with my Maginot line, Herbert's Maginot line is rebuilt. Quick game and misdirection. Protect the QB. I think we're going to replicate the Falcons' schematic blueprint. That's going to be, we talked about it, motion, mismatches, deep shots, pushing the running game. And I think I'm going to say that the defense bends a little bit and gives up a little more than 20 points, but it generates 2 turnovers. That's what I'm going to say. This is going to be the turnover game. So I will go the Chargers win 30-27. High scoring game at SoFi.
Okay. I like that you called out lunch pail earlier, so I'm going to go a headline on the fly, and I'm going to channel Andy. I'm going to say, bring your lunch pail, offensive line, or get the fuck off the work site. That's what I'm going to say. Because I think the Commanders' pass rush is just middle of the road. Like, I don't think they're a special pass rush unit, and I think the Chargers in the coming weeks are going to have to face teams like the Vikings off a short break. And I think they've got the Colts in a few weeks' time as well, who are also strong. If we can't work out how to stop the Commanders' pass rush this week, I'm a little bit worried about that. I'll start having that foreboding feeling. For this week, I'm going to remain positive. I'm going to go with the Chargers to win 24-21. Nice. Minter's defense has a bounce back, just like you said.
Nice.
All right.
Cool.
Shall we end with a comment or a headline from around the NFL? Do you have anything for me, Jack? Have you prepared something? Can you come up with something while I spend some time talking? I could talk underwater. I'll keep on going for you around the NFL.
All I can say that it's not a great week to be a sideline reporter at a Chicago game, is it? Because I tell you what, our man, your man, our man, Caleb's man, Ben Johnson was not happy with some of the questions he got asked during the halftime or coming back out of halftime. But the Chicago Bears they're digging in. They're digging. How about a blocked field goal to ice the game as well? So good on Ben Johnson. Maybe that's what Chicago needs. Not intimidating women, by the way, because
no,
it was pretty bad. But maybe they just need a little bit more, a little bit more lunch pail to counteract the pink fingernails.
Yes. It was getting some test. There was some testing exchanges, between coaches as well on the sideline. We saw Robert Saleh and Liam Cohen going at each other. I liked that you mentioned block party though, Jack, because I was thinking the Eagles. The Eagles had their second block for a touchdown in consecutive weeks. Last week it was Jordan Davis. This week it was Sidney Brown. Also, Gubner. I reckon I'm picturing you back in the day when you're living in England. I reckon you would listen to a little bit of block party. A bit of helicopter.
I didn't mind a bit of helicopter.
Not too south.
I've actually seen them live. I've seen them live a couple of times.
Okay.
Good band. Yeah.
But look, listeners will enjoy when I get things wrong. And I had the Eagles as that team who I thought every year there's a team who slips off. And I predicted the Eagles missed the playoffs. Nope. Kevin Patullo, they're 4-0. So how wrong was Al?
We're all wrong sometimes, Alistair. I mean, and did you want to shout out that guy that called me out as well? What was it? I remember, if he's still listening.
We might save that for maybe the next time the Chargers have a win, because I want you to be in a better position to say hey. Or another loss. Give you another loss.
All people need to know that I can talk my way out of almost anything. I hedge my bets. That's what I like to do. But you can call me out. I'm now slowly beginning to sort of regret my Caleb Williams take. But as I said, it only took it takes the best offensive mind in the game to get him there. So.
Stick true, Jack. He didn't look that good this week. They won off a blocked field goal. You just gotta have a take, and you got to stick out there stubbornly, as Andy would say, but not irrationally. As as enough evidence mounts, you have to be able to budge just a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
We're up to the hour. We're missing Andy. I think we're another maybe 2 or 3 shows before he returns. He's having an awesome time. He's crossed the border into France with the family. So Andy, we miss you. Have an awesome time. Any final thoughts, Jack?
No, huge. I just would like to see a win this week, even though it would open me up for all sorts of criticism. Let's get a win. And listeners, hope you're all well. Thank you so much for listening in to what we do. Super, super appreciative. And again, as Alistair said at the top of the show, please like, subscribe, leave a comment for us, because this thing we're building is getting bigger, and you're all a part of it. I reckon maybe should we do a sort of a quarter season mailbag element for next week or the week after? I think that
we have had a request to do some more mailbags. I think it's probably the right time, and a few questions, no doubt, about the offensive line and some other topics. So we'll set that up. You guys stay well, enjoy the game this week, and we will see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast.
Backpedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it! 6 and 10, 5, high step, touchdown! San Diego!
Woo! Good night! Good night to all!